Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are learning more tricks for lyrics. We're going to talk specifically about word extensions and hyphens. Now, in the lyrics tool, there is a word extension subtool. It's the third one in the window here, Edit Word Extensions. Of course, it exists in the lyrics menu there as well, Edit Word Extensions. And this is where we're going to be able to adjust our word extensions. Interestingly, if you're in the Selection tool, if I go back to the Type and Score tool here, it makes more sense. If you're in the Selection tool, you can actually double-click the word extension, and it will move you to the lyric tool, but also to the word extension subtool, which is kind of handy. So once you're in this word extension tool, what you'll see is you'll start seeing these handles at the ends of the word extensions. Now the word extensions can just be, you can grab the handle and move them left or right. You cannot move them up or down, however. All right, so you can only move them left or right. And unfortunately, we can only move one at a time. So if I wanted to try and lasso select both of these word extensions here, it's not going to let me. I can only move one at a time. We can simply delete a word extension by selecting the handle and pressing delete, and it will go away. Also, after we make adjustments, we can reset the restore default position to it by right-clicking and remove manual adjustments, and it will go back to normal. We can actually do that from the selection tool as well if we wanted to. Just choose a selection tool, right-click that word extension, remove manual adjustments, and it goes back to normal. Now, I mentioned a few times that word extensions have sort of a minimum length, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this video, but in some cases you'll actually see the word extension, like in these at the end of the second bar here for the words amazing and the words many, you'll see the word extension handle sort of out towards the right of the ends of the words. There is technically a word extension here, it's just that it's too short to show according to the parameters that I have set in the file. But sometimes all you have to do is just grab one of those handles and move it a little bit to the right so that it becomes longer than the minimum width required, and now your word extension will show. Word extensions can also be put on any word. As you can see, every word has a word extension handle, except the middle or the beginning of hyphenated words. So you can't actually put a word extension where a hyphen is, for example. But anywhere else, you can actually, just grab that handle and extend a word extension. What you have to know about this, though, is that when you do that, Finale will now left align and left justify those words, which will give you some weird results sometimes. But for some reason you need to have a word extension on a word where one doesn't exist, you can always just grab that handle and move it off to the right. Now, there may be occasions where you'll want a word extension where there is no word available. Like, let's say we just, for whatever reason, I need one on the soprano line here. Really, the best way to do that is to kind of trick Finale into thinking there's a word there. So what I'm going to do is actually type the letter I, because it's the narrowest letter that you can have. And I'm going to select that and actually just hide it. Style hidden. So there actually is a word there, but Finale, it won't actually print. And because it's so narrow, it's not actually going to have any effect on the spacing either. And then from here, you can just sort of space over to get a word extension. Now it looks like looks like the letter I has a word extension, but this is hidden, so it will never print. So it's just an empty word extension. And as I mentioned in one of the previous videos, the word extensions will keep running until there's a rest. Now that also might be a problem, and a quick fix to this is actually with the Type and Score tool again. If you choose, let's say I'm going to type something in this B. Of course, if I type any word here, it's going to stop the word extension on the A. But we can also just type a hard space, which would be Option space, and that will sort of stop the word extensions in the tracks without actually having a new word here. So that's another little nifty trick sometimes. So what I've done is just create a word extension, a blank word extension here on 2 notes, and all you'll see is that word extension with nothing on the following 2 notes. I should have mentioned one more thing, which I'll just go back to real quick. With the remove manual adjustments, we can also, instead of right-clicking to choose the remove manual adjustments, if you have a clear key on your Macintosh, you can just press that clear key, and that will also remove the manual adjustments. And that just about covers everything for adjusting the word extensions. So actually, let's start talking about some of the settings, the document options that exist for word extensions. So we're going to find document options. We're going to go to lyrics. Now, all of the word extension settings exist in a different window that you get to by pressing this word extensions button. And we get the word extensions options here. Now, this use smart word extensions. So smart word extensions were added many, many, many versions ago in Finale, and this is what allows Finale to draw them automatically as you're typing. If you uncheck this, you're going back about 15, 20 years in Finale and doing this the old school way. And what will happen is you'll see all of those red word extensions go away. However, we can still add the word extensions with the word extension tool. And you'll get your handles there, and you can actually go ahead and draw them. If you grab it and draw it, and you'll see that these are very different word extensions, and they turn black. They're not red, and they're sort of attached to that note in some weird way. But the problem with these old school word extensions is that these lengths are absolute, right? Which is a problem because if you make any kinds of changes, like let's say I put this bar down below, that word extension remains the same length, and it doesn't appear on the next system, which is a problem. Now, this is obviously why Finale, decided to forego this method of doing word extensions and created the smart word extensions, which are, as you would think, much smarter. So really no reason to have that on check. It's just a vestige of an old way of doing things in Finale. There is a possibly slightly more useful option there having to do with smart word extensions called only create on lyrics with the underscore. Now, when we have this checked, Finale will not automatically create a word extension when you space through notes. So if I type a word there and I press space, you'll notice that it will not create the word extension. However, the way that you would then manually create the word extension is to type shift hyphen, and that will create the word extension, and then you can space through to get that word extension to expand to as far as you need to. Now, this is somewhat handy in certain circumstances where you may not need the word extensions on every single in every single situation, and it's sort of a pain to keep deleting word extensions. You can use this method instead and just press shift hyphen to manually add the word extensions wherever you need them. Let's go back there and uncheck that. And then let's start talking about all the other options here. So the minimum length, this is what we were talking about before. This is the length required for the word extensions to appear. So let me just go over to that one moment at the beginning where you're not seeing the word extension on the word many, right? So if we go back here, word extensions, what we can do is simply shorten this value. Instead of 0.13, we can make it 0.1. Let's see if that does it. Hit apply, and you'll see the word extension now appears on the word many. It's still too short for the zing of amazing, but that was the adjustment we made. I could probably make this a lot shorter, make that 0.01, and that will probably appear on the zing of amazing as well. Yep, there it is. So depending on what you want to see, this value will have a profound effect on when those word extensions show up and when they don't. So we'll just go back to the way it is out of the box, 0.13. There's some other options here. This system break alignment setting, this has to do with where the word extensions end and start, or start and end rather, compared to the beginning of or the end of the music at the end or the beginning of the system. So let's see if I can. Let's see if I have a word extension that crosses a system. I don't, so I have to do this. There we go. So now you'll see this word extension goes to the end of the system. There's sort of an offset here because the end of the bar line is about here, so there's a little bit of an offset between the end of the word extension and the end of the bar. Now we can change that distance with this system end setting, and you can see that it's set to negative 0.04, which means that it's going left by 0.04 from the left edge. If I were to change this to 0, what you should see now is that these word extensions will go right up against the end of the bar line. So depending on how you want to show those word extensions, you can adjust these values. And the same thing applies for the system start. If I go to the second system here and show you when the word extensions get put here, there's a position at the very beginning of the bar. It's somewhere right here. So the word extension is just a little bit to the right of that invisible line where the finale considers the music to be starting. We can always adjust this, and actually if we make this a negative value, right now it's 0.04, we can make this something like, negative 0.1, and what you'll see is that the beginning of that word extension will extend a lot farther to the left if you want to see something like that. So that's the adjustments that can be made with the word extensions vis-a-vis the system breaks. All right, go back to normal there. Some of the other settings there, let's see what's next. Word extensions. Note head alignment. This has to do with the very end of the word extension. And you'll see that they're both set to 0, and the 0 point is the right edge of the last point of the note head. So you can see where I'm pointing here. Just at the right edge of the note head is exactly where the word extension ends. If I were to change that to a positive value here, 0.05, you'll see that it will extend a little bit farther than that, right? A negative value would make it go a little bit to the left. And there's a different setting for dotted notes. So if your word extension ends on a dotted note, let's see, do I have that here somewhere? I don't know if I do. Well, I can have it here if I type something in real quick. You'll see I have a word extension. Oops. Did I not set that? I had that unchecked. There we go. Try that again. You'll see that the word extension will also go right to the right edge of the dot. So that's another option that we can set right there. If we wanted to, we could change where that word extension ends at the end of a dot. And there's an option here to stretch to note duration. Now with that checked, what Finale is going to do is it's going to extend the word extension all the way through the duration of that note to a certain point, minus or plus a specific offset. In this case, it's set to negative 0.02778. And that will, allow the word extension to go just a little bit to the left of what Finale considers the end of the duration of that note. All right, so that's what that does. More often than not, I believe that the align to note head 00 settings is probably the way to go. And then in addition to that, we do have these other options here for the lyric alignment. Now this has to do with the left edge of the word extension, and also the horizontal offset has to do with the left edge. The vertical offset will actually allow you to move the word extension by default up or down. Now this 0.00347 value is probably fine. It's what's giving you, if I can zoom in really far here, it's pretty much what's allowing the word extension to line up perfectly with the bottom of the lyric. But if we move that value a little bit, let's go back here. Let's say, what is it, 0.00347. If we make it like 0.01, it should go a little bit higher than that. And you'll see the word extension just get a little bit higher than the bottom edge there. Go back to 003. Now, the only reason I shouldn't say the only reason, probably a good reason to futz with this value right here is if you're using a different font, it's possible that 0.003 value doesn't quite line up the word extension with the bottom edge of the lyric. So that would be where you would make that adjustment if for some reason the font you're using dips too far down or too far up or something. That's where you would make that adjustment. And then the offset from the syllable is literally what's creating this slight little gap between the word and the word extension. So if you think that's too high or too little, you can change this. It's at 0.2778, but if we make it 0.4 right now, 0.04, you'll see it gets a little bit farther away from the word itself. So that's, it's this one here. 2778. That's what that adjustment does. And then finally, the last adjustment there, the line thickness, which is exactly what you would think it is. It's the thickness of the line, and you have control over that. So now it's set to 0.00765. We can double that if we want, and we would get much thicker word extensions, right? 0.00765 or something, I think. There we go. That looks better. So that's pretty much the all the adjustments that are available for the word extensions. It's pretty exhaustive. You have a bit of control over them, so you can adjust those as you need to. So very quickly, let's talk about hyphens. Now, the hyphens is one of the few things in Finale where you actually do not have control over individual hyphens. There's no way to actually, grab a hyphen and, try and move it around. You can't move it up or down. You can't even right-click to get a contextual menu. There's literally no control, individually speaking, of the hyphens. All of the settings for the hyphens are global, and they're set in that document options for lyrics. And in fact, they start in the middle section here for hyphens. Now, there is a smart hyphens as well, in addition to the smart word extensions. And the smart hyphens really just have to do with what happens with the hyphens across system breaks. And there's three options here. When the last syllable on the previous system has a hyphen, put hyphens at system start always. Only when the first syllable is attached to the second note or later, or never. Those are your three options for the smart hyphens. And by default, the second option is here, only when the first syllable is attached to the second note or later. And what you can see is I have this set up here with a hyphenated word going across the system here. And you'll see the word systems is hyphenated. And in the first staff here, the second part of the word gets put on the very first note, and there's no hyphen there. That is because of that setting that says only when the first syllable is attached to the second note or later. So with the alto and tenor lines, the second part of the hyphenated word is on the second note or later, and that's why you're getting these hyphens. If we choose always, you'll see a hyphen appear right here, which will, if you want to see it that way, that's exactly how you would have to do that. You choose the always, and it will put a hyphen there regardless of where the word lands in the bar. Or we could choose never, which would eliminate the hyphens across the system breaks altogether, which is a choice, I suppose. Not one that I would make, but that is a choice. Personally, I don't see any reason to change this off of the only when the first syllable is attached to the second note or later option. It seems to make the most sense to me. But I can see how using the always could also be an option. And then there's a few other options for the hyphens below that. There is the maximum space between hyphens. Now, this has to do with when you have a lot of hyphens, like you have a long span between the beginning syllable and the end syllable, and you'll get, in this case, you get 4 hyphens right here. We can actually change the distance there, which will allow more hyphens to be put in that space. So right now the maximum space between hyphens is set to 1, but if I were to change this to 0.5, what you'll see is that the distance between each hyphen gets shortened, which means that there's more hyphens that are allowed in that particular space. So depending on how frequently you want to see your hyphens, you can adjust this value. In fact, if you put it at 0.1, you'll get something that looks, something like that. By default, Finale sets this to 1, which is probably okay. I don't know, it could be a little smaller. Maybe 0.8 would be a good or better value. It probably won't change most of the hyphens, but you can do what you want with that particular value. And then the last few options here is the hyphen character, and literally this is just the character from the font set. It's the hyphen. If you really want, you can change this. If you prefer to see a longer hyphen, you can find the N dash here and choose that, and what you'll get is sort of a longer hyphen. Of course, that does change the distance between, which is why you just saw that go from 4 hyphens to 3 hyphens. Depending on the spacing, sometimes things like that will happen. Or you could choose the really long M dash for this, and you get really long hyphens. So you have a couple options there, or you could actually choose any character you want if you really wanted to, and that's what that would do. And then finally, you can theoretically use an alternate hyphen font, and you can select any font that you want, any size, etc. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could stay with Finale lyrics, and if your hyphens are too small, you could do something like, change it to 16-point font or something, and it should make your hyphens a little bit larger. That's one way to do that, I suppose. Unless or if you have like a special character from another font, that special like squiggly hyphen or something that you want to use, you can use this alternate hyphen font for that. And that's it. There's really no more options for the hyphens. As I mentioned, you can't actually individually edit a hyphen, which is interesting because there's not very many things in Finale that you don't have complete individual control over. And that happens to be one of them, the hyphen in the lyrics. So there you have it. So that's a lot, but that's literally everything you could possibly ever know about word extensions and hyphens in Finale. So I hope this has helped. Thanks for watching. Come back. I think I got a couple more videos left with the lyrics tool, so come back for that. And thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.